know that we could improve the look and feel of this room just by adding in some patterns. Join me as we are going to review this room and come up with some ideas of how to improve it. So first thing, let's just take a look at this room. And we are just using a stock image of this nice open concept apartment. And when we first take a look at it, we'll get an idea that it is in kind of a sophisticated type of style. There is a nice neutral color palette going on and kind of classic designs for the furnishings. It's also a nice light and bright space. And there seems to be a nice variety of different finishes and materials used in this entire space. And there is a nice contrast between light colors and dark colors. And it has a nice minimal approach to all of the decor in the room. But if we were going to provide some suggestions on how to adjust some things in the room so it looks and feels even better, there are a couple areas that I would take a look at. The first one would be looking at how there is a nice contrast between light and dark in the room, but there doesn't seem to be anything in between. Another part of this room that I notice seems to be that there's a lot of solid colors, solid blocks of colors. And so that's where we would want to bring in some patterns or different types of textures. Another thing that I notice about this room is that it seems kind of impersonal, and that may be on purpose, but to make it more of a home, it might be important to personalize it a bit more. And the last area that I would take a look at is the dining room area, because I seem to notice that maybe there is some space planning or maybe even an opportunity to purchase some different types of furniture that may work just a bit better. So to address each of these areas, one of the first approaches I would take is just to come in and make some small adjustments. We could even call them styling adjustments. So when we are thinking about noticing that there is a contrast between very light and very dark, but there doesn't seem to be anything in between. In fact, we can get a really good idea of this when we take out the color from this photograph, and that's where we can notice the values. And value just has to do with lightness and darkness. And we can notice right away that there's a lot of contrast just with very light colors and then very dark colors. But we need something in between. So some small changes that could be made would be to bring in maybe some tans and beiges and other variations of these neutral colors. That could be on throw pillows or in artwork or in accessories. And just by adding in other variations of the values of these neutral colors into the room helps to create more depth and more layers in the room. And this is something you can do as well. If you have a room where you have a lot of contrast between light and dark colors, but there is very little of colors or values that are in between, well, bring in some smaller items that will help to balance things out and create more layers and depth to your space. And then, of course, one way to balance things out with a room that has a lot of solid blocks of color in it is to add in some patterns and textures. And if we zoom in on that dining room table onto those chairs, we'll notice that there is a pattern on those upholstered chairs, but that pattern is very light and very low contrast. And overall, it reads as a solid sort of block of color. So I think it would be nice to bring in some patterns that have more contrast to them. And this, once again, could be on some throw pillows or in artwork. It could also be in the textures that you choose for different types of accessories or lighting. And plants can also bring in different types of patterns and textures into the room. And another way to help balance things out is to also maybe bring in some pops of color. We have a really nice neutral color scheme going on, but it would be nice to bring in some plants, but also maybe some fresh flowers in a vase on the dining room table, or bringing in other colors in artwork or accessories, just to kind of help liven things up just a bit. And then this is something you can do as well. So if you have a room that seems to have a lot of solid colors in it, well, bring in some patterns or some other textures that have a little bit more contrast going on in them. And then right away, it will add more variety to your room. And the other thing I noticed about this home is that it seems a little impersonal. So that's where it would be important to add in personal items like family photos and books and magazines that we like to read, and anything else that helps to express the personal style of the person who lives here. And this is something you can keep in mind as well, is to make sure that you personalize each of your rooms, that you bring in things that mean a lot to you and that express your design style, express who you are. And for our room that we are reviewing, what are your ideas? What are small changes that we could create in this room so that it has a more improved and a better look and feel going on in it? So please share your ideas in the comments. And then in addition to those smaller changes, if we had the opportunity, there are some bigger changes that we could do to this room so that there's even more impact. One of the first areas I would look at is maybe the wall color. One approach would be just to keep this nice wall color because it's a nice, creamy, warm white, and it really does lighten and brighten this space. But one thing that maybe we could think about doing is maybe deepening the color just a bit. And just by deepening the color, it may help to kind of tie things together just a bit more. And this could be on all of the walls, or this could be as an accent wall color on the wall where the sofa and where the mirror is hanging. And for you, if you have a room where there is a lot of contrast going on, maybe with very dark colors and very light colors, you may want to think about maybe deepening the color on your walls, because that way it may help to just subtly tie everything together just a bit more. Another area that I may address is what we would refer to as the breakfast bar area. So if we look at that photo, we can see that there is a big opening and there are bar stools up to the countertop, and there's actually a built-in shelf, and there's lighting under the shelf that shines down onto the eating area. But I think that overall that design doesn't seem to be working as well as it could be. I think that we could redesign that area completely. Maybe even just making some simple adjustments as taking out that shelf and maybe lowering the ceiling height a little bit over that bar area and just adding some pendant lights over the eating area. But one thing that we may want to do in this area is just to completely take out that entire built-in area so that that kitchen area, as in this example, is just opened up into the room. And that could include adding in some nice pendant lights over that area and sprucing it up just a bit more. But that may be a good option for this room. And this is something you can do as well. If you have an area in your room that seems kind of blah, or doesn't seem as special as it could be, or doesn't seem to be working or fitting in with everything else in the room, it's a time to sit back and kind of look at everything and see if there's an opportunity to create a different design or make some changes to that area so that it's more cohesive and more special. And the next area that I would want to address is the dining room area, because one thing that I notice is I'm not quite sure if the space planning is working really well in that area, it's not very functional, as well as it could be due to the wrong sizes or types of pieces of furniture that are in that area. I don't know the layout specifically of this room, but I came up with an idea of probably what it may look like. So here is my illustration of this floor plan. One thing that's going on in this room is that because it is an open concept room, it's really important that we set aside pathways so that we can easily move from one area to another. And next to that dining room table, there is a major pathway that is really important to set aside. Right now, I feel like that area is a little bit tight, and especially if someone were to sit at that chair on the right side, there wouldn't be enough room for someone to move around that chair very easily. And so my suggestion for this area is to kind of start from scratch. What I would do is set aside 36 inches at least for a pathway. So 36 inches on that right side. Then I would measure how much space we have left over and to determine what size of dining room table will fit there. I may just start with a table that seats 4 people, but maybe it could be an extendable table. So on those occasions when you need to plan for more people, we could extend it out just a bit. And I would look for a different type of design. If we zoom in on that table, it's kind of an interesting design. It's kind of this unique design of table, but it really is not maybe a very good fit for this space where we need to kind of maximize space, because you can't even push the chairs completely under the table to free up more space. So I would want to look for some tables where we could do that easily. And in addition to figuring out what size of dining room table could go in that area, we would also need to keep in mind that we need to leave space for the chairs. And what we have to think about is that those chairs are movable. We have to be able to push them in and pull them out and have someone be able to walk around us when someone's sitting in that chair. Lots of times we can think about maybe 36 inches or 91.44 centimeters out from the edge of the table to accommodate a chair, as well as some space for someone to walk around that chair. So when we're thinking about sizes for this area, I would think of how much space we have overall and also how much space we need for chairs to find a size that would work there. And maybe I would look for a table that could be in metal, as they have this table here, but it also could be in a lighter wood, because there are lighter wood cabinets in the kitchen, and it might be nice to break things up just a bit, so not to have all the furniture in dark colors. And these are 2 options that I found that may work for this space. Which one do you like better? Either A or B. So share your choice in the comments. And I would plan to center that table in between the edge of the walkway and that wall on the left side. Then I would see if there's any room left over to place another cabinet. But ideally, we would want to look for a cabinet or a shelving unit that's not as deep as that original one that was there. But in fact, maybe in this room, because it is a smaller area, we may not even put any other furniture there because it really does take up space. And maybe that just means keeping that mirror on the wall. And maybe it would be nice to add an area rug under the dining room table just to kind of bring that entire area together, and also to bring in some other colors or patterns. And for you, when you want to buy a new dining room table, make sure that you plan plenty of space around the table so that it accommodates a chair as well as space for people to move around and behind the chairs, so that there's plenty of space and so that room is not only just beautiful, but also functional. In addition to everything that we kind of talked about, it might be nice to maybe buy new living room furniture. Maybe that is a nice new sofa, and maybe even keep that idea of those fun little stools or poofs that are there. And I would just take time to have some variations so that not all of the upholstered furniture is in that same color. I would want to mix things up a bit, whether that's darker and lighter values and also different types of variations of neutral colors. And it may be nice to purchase a coffee table that maybe is in a different material or maybe even in a lighter wood stain. Those are my ideas for bigger changes for this room, but I'd love to find out from you, what are your ideas on bigger things we could do to this room to really impact the look and feel of this space? So please share your ideas in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time when we discover more neat things about interior design. Take care.